So, over a year ago, I made this video defending the Ruby vs. Aesop's fight from Ruby Volume 7 with the underlying point that power scaling doesn't matter and limits what a writer can do, and even if it did matter, by power scaling logic, Ruby vs. Aesop still holds up. People didn't get that, and so I knew I would have to revisit the subject again at a later date. And that later date is now. Power scaling is not a term that exists in writing, full stop. Power scaling was invented by online forums in order to, quote, fix the problems with power levels in order to participate in online dick measuring contests surrounding their favorite characters. Which is why the only source I can find on the actual definition and mechanics of power scaling is the Versus Wiki! Yeah, that's right, this tote serious aspect of writing that all these YouTubers cling to like gospel. Yeah, turns out their gospel is less the Book of Luke and more Jesus Christ Superstar. A single page on a single fandom wiki. Yeah, not even an actual serious wiki, a fandom wiki. As you can tell by the thumbnail, I wanted to use One Piece as my one-story example debunking and destroying the entire concept and showcasing how the Versus community is wrong about pretty much everything. But reading this wiki was hilarious, so I'm going scriptless for this next section as I read you the wiki in its entirety and just go point by point on why it's all just silly fandom bullshit. Alright, so what I have here is the only source for power scaling. So you can see, I just typed in power scaling into Google. This was the first thing that popped up. And everything else that pops up, Versus Battle Wiki, Reddit, LondonPower.com. Oh, that's not even talking about power scaling the fandom thing. That's talking about dial the sound down to whisper level. That's like audio editing or audio engineering stuff. Same thing with that. Comic verse, like how poor power scaling ruins anime. That's an opinion piece. We got a science thing with laser power scaling. Yeah, so like I said, the only source for power scaling as we have been referring to it is Fandom Wiki. But let's look at what this entails. Because, fandoms aren't always wrong about everything. Now, they can, you can get some cool little fan theories and analysis out of stuff like this. So, well, let's see what we have in store. The spoiler, I already read this. There's nothing worthwhile in store. So, I'm going to read this in its entirety, and it will not take very long. Power scaling is the method of determining a character's power through comparing them to other characters in their series. So right off the bat, we have this problem here within their series. So even at its purest form, you can't use power scaling to talk about one series versus another. Different worlds follow different rules. The logic behind power scaling works much that of transitive relation, in which A is greater than B, and B is greater than C, then A is greater than C. Now, the logic there is sound, but it's also failing to account for pretty much everything. Just think of Pokemon. Fire is stronger than grass, and grass is stronger than water, therefore fire is stronger than water. No, that's not the case. There's a lot of rock, paper, scissors relationships in the real world. There's this give and take. Something that's faster isn't always something stronger. Cheetahs are faster than lions, but lions are way stronger and way bigger and way more successful out in the wilds than cheetahs are, because they don't need that speed. They make up for it in other regards. So if character A is stronger than character B, and character B is stronger than character C, then logically character A is also stronger than character C. Again, no, that is not how anything works ever. You could have a baseball hitter who's really good at hitting fastballs, but they're not going to be able to be as good at hitting those curveballs. But you can have a hitter that's really good at hitting those curveballs and decent at hitting fastballs. That doesn't mean that that second hitter is better than that first hitter. It just means they have different strengths and weaknesses. Another way power scaling works is through attributing feats a character performs to other characters who are equal or greater than that character as well. How do we determine that? How do we determine whether two characters are equal or greater? You can't use rank, because rank is just denoted by other people. It's not a feat-based thing. Look at, going to One Piece, Smoker, at the very beginning of the series, is a captain. You know who else is a captain? I'm pretty sure Axehand Morgan was a captain. So they are of the same rank. Are they the same, power level? Are they, as strong as each other? No! Smoker is a Logia user for starters, and he has way more skill and way more experience than Axehand Morgan, and we see that by the fact that Luffy and Zoro completely body Axehand Morgan, but then when they go fight Smoker, Smoker completely bodies them, and that happens later on. So logically we can think, okay, yeah, definitely, Smoker is stronger than Axehand Morgan. But notice what I didn't use in that following logic. I didn't use rank to determine that. I used what we actually see on screen, and if the only way to make us... There's no assumptions there. You see it. It is established that Smoker is stronger than Axehand Morgan, not by reputation, not by word of mouth, but by the fact that he kicks Luffy's ass and Axehand Morgan didn't. So if character A is capable of lifting a car and character B has proven to be stronger than character A, then it is safe to say that character B can also lift a car. Again, not necessarily true. Because lifting a car is only one type of feat, and it requires, certain body mechanics and leverage and stuff like that. Now, the whole idea that a 5-pound bar of gold is way easier to carry than a 5-pound bag of feathers. And then there's the fact that there's way more that goes into any fight than just strength. You can hit way harder than your opponent and lose every single time. So power scaling, it's looking like it fails to account for pretty much anything that you would actually use to determine betting odds on a fight. Oh, and the thing about betting odds is that there's always a slim chance that those odds are wrong. It's the most likely to win in a fight. There's any number of factors that can turn it around. We see this all the time in One Piece. Luffy gets beat up a lot, Luffy gets underestimated a lot, but he still manages to pull it out because he's that cool, and that's just the story that Oda wants to tell. It's about, surpassing expectations and stuff. Although a misuse or over-extrapolation of power scaling can lead to grossly inaccurate ratings, a logical and moderate use can be both helpful and essential to properly determining one's power. I guess I kind of agree with that. It's at least... This wiki is at least acknowledging for a minute that, a lot of people who buy way into power scaling, they tend to overestimate certain things or underestimate other things or completely just make bullshit up. I've seen people like Seth the Programmer do that a lot, where he just makes up how much power it would take to do something, completely ignoring the fact that chakra isn't like a real thing, and so you can't just translate chakra to joules being an actual measurement system for power. As without power scaling and going purely by feats, many characters would end up being unknown in stats or be lowballed to absurd extents, such as Whis being weaker than Piccolo, going by pure feats. Yeah, Masugaru being weaker than Genos, or characters who have consistently been said and shown to have power on par with planet-level beings be rated as wall level. So, I was hoping to maybe get to this later, but it did bring up the idea of planet level and wall level. What planets and walls are we talking about here? I really do have to just be this pedantic with this subject because people just don't get it. Planets are different sizes. Blowing up Mercury is nowhere near as impressive as blowing up Earth. And yet, you see these terms like planet level, city level, continental level. What continent? Australia? Or North America? Or Asia? Or Africa? Which one? Planet level. Are we talking Mercury, Venus, and Earth because they're around the same size? Mars? Pluto? Asteroid level. You realize that asteroids range from the size of, like, this controller to the size of, like, the moon. The moon level. Are we talking Earth's moon, or are we talking about the fictional moons that exist in these fictional worlds? It is possible for a character who is depicted as vastly superior to another in a statistic to be placed in a tier above the other, given that the other character is close to the next tier. However, the ultimately needs to be decided through a case-by-case analysis. So, this right here kind of itself is debunking a lot of power scalers who completely refuse to use case-by-case analysis. They look at things like, oh, Whitebeard is the world's strongest man, therefore, even at his oldest and most fatigued, he should be able to 1v1 literally anybody ever of all time. Like, no. He wasn't even as strong as Roger at his peak. Like, I think Oda even said that, had Garp been serious, he would have been able to counter everything Whitebeard did. And then even with how serious Whitebeard was, you had Akainu still blowing half his face off. While as a whole the legitimacy of power scaling within a franchise should be analyzed on a case-by-case basis, the following is a general guide to what would and would not be accepted to scale off of in most situations. Again, so this whole thing is just making up their own rules. Character A performed a feat of destroying a city and has city level durability. Creating and, being able to do damage and take damage is not the same thing, guys. And also, what city? Are we talking St. Louis, where I'm from? Or are we talking New York? So character B has overpowered character A, critically injured character A, and is portrayed as physically superior to character A. Again, that's not established until it actually is. Until we actually see character B do the stuff to character A, it isn't established. In this case, it is safe to assess that character B has city level attack potency despite not having feat of city destroying themselves. Yeah, but again, that's just an assumption because maybe character A has an ability to where he can clap his hands and city be gone, whereas character B doesn't really have that ability. No, Dragon Ball Super does this a little bit with, what is it that the Gods of Destruction do? The Hakai? The Destruction Ball, that's like an antimatter bomb that only Gods of Destruction can do. Yes, we are told time and time again that the angels are technically stronger than the Gods of Destruction and that they have, like, Ultra Instinct at all times, so they would be able to win in a fight, but they don't have the same Hakai that allows the Gods of Destruction to do their jobs. It's basically magic. Even though it is a type of key, it's God key that creates the Hakai. Dragon Ball is very, like, I wouldn't say particular, but it does dot its I's and cross its T's with its terminology differentiating key from magic. But it basically operates the same way that magic would in other series. Character A has FTL feat, and character B outpaces or speed blitzes character A, then it is safe to assess that character B has faster than light speed as well. Nope! Wrong. Never. First of all, faster than light is really dumb. It's physically impossible to go faster than the speed of light. You would literally break down all the matter in your body and melt if you go faster than the speed of light. The only characters who can get away with it are characters like Green Lantern or Flash, where their bodies, Green Lantern, when he has the power ring, he basically is light at that point. And then, and again, like, the rings are basically magic in DC. Like, yeah, they operate differently than actual magic, but for all intents and purposes, they're magic for us. And then the Speed Force is a completely different dimension of energy that plays by its own rules that have no regards for the laws of physics, which is why the Flash is able to run as fast as he can without completely just melting Earth's atmosphere. And now, as far as speed blitzes go, again, speed blitz, I'm going to click on it real quick because this is also a fandom, terminology, not an actual writing term. It's the act of one attacking their opponent before they are capable of perceiving or reacting to them. What if they weren't paying attention? Or what if they're on an off day? Or what if they're like, a person whose reaction times aren't consistent? Later on in the video, in the scripted section, I talk about baseball hitters and how even the best, have a lifetime batting average of like 3.23. Or what happens if, like, in Identity Crisis, where you have Deathstroke versus Flash, Flash being a much faster character because he's got the Speed Force, and Deathstroke is just a guy who's kind of quick. But Deathstroke, right out the gate, before the Flash even starts running, he knows exactly where the Flash is going to be because he's just smart and has his blade there waiting for him. So Flash just runs right into the blade without even really knowing what happened. He just sprints, tries to, like, speed blitz Deathstroke and runs right into Deathstroke's sword because, he wasn't thinking that Deathstroke had already predicted that move. Alternatively, if character A has a FTL feat, character B blitz character A, and character C is faster than character B, it is safe to assess that character C is FTL as well. Not really, no. Again, because there's a lot more to it than that. Character A has a city level feat, character B lost to character A, yet still put up a considerable fight. What are we talking about with what constitutes a considerable fight? Was able to harm him and clearly made character A exert effort into defeating character B, then it is safe to assess that character B has city level attack potency and durability as well. Okay, so if character B lost to character A, but character B is like an actual just ball of iron that character A is just trying to crush, but it does, but it takes a lot of effort, and character A is city level. Does that mean that the steel ball is city level, or does it mean that, the steel ball is just that tough? In this case, due to the massive broadness of tiers, even if there is a clear power gap between the two characters, it typically cannot be a big enough gap that they're tiers apart if they can have an actual fight with someone. As for example, a small planet level would never be able to harm or do anything at all to a large planet level, as the gap between the two tiers is nearly 30 million times. Where did they get that number? Again, like, what planets are they talking about? Small planet level, large planet level? So even if a character overall lost to a large planet, if they were able to cause considerable harm to and hold their own against that person, they'd have to be large planet level, though on a clearly lesser extent as the large planet level they lost to. This is just nonsense. If character A has a city level feat and character B has been reliably stated to be superior than character A. Reliably stated, again, that is a subjective term. What constitutes reliability, and in what context is it stated? Okay, examples of non-viable power scaling. Character A has city level durability, and character B harmed character A through durability negating hacks. Again, like the fact that this wiki that is supposed to be like the main source for what power scaling is and isn't uses the term hacks. Just, it kind of says everything you need to know, doesn't it? Then it is not safe to assess that character B has city level attack potency since they didn't use their attack potency to overwhelm the target's durability. Except, no, that's not how things work. If you let's say you have a sword. So, mathematically, swords and all weapons, really, are kind of multipliers for force because of the way that just leverage and body mechanics work. So, like, I have this little hammer that I was using for a project earlier. Me swinging it like this is going to generate a lot more force than me swinging my fist like this. Now, swinging it like this is going to generate even more force because that force is condensed to a much smaller surface area than it is here. So if I'm fighting off some dude with a helmet and I hit him like this and it just puts a dent in the helmet, but if I hit him like this and it actually breaks through the helmet, that's not a durability negating hacks. That is still energy that is being generated by the hammer. Yes, I am using a tool, but the energy is still there. So just because you have durability negating hacks doesn't mean that you don't generate that much force from whatever ability you're using. Now there's that law of conservation of mass and law of conservation of energy. Character A is city level, and character B was able to survive attacks from or harm character A. However, character A was holding back, restricting themselves, not putting their all into their attack, or was in a weakened state during the fight. This is all stuff that is stated, that should be stated. Then it is not safe to assess that character B has city level AP or durability, as this would clearly indicate that the two do not have comparable power, and that one is much superior to the other. I'm fine with that statement. You know, this happens a lot. You know, holding back or not fighting at 100%. You know, Whitebeard during the whole Paramount War is basically sick and dying, and just, you know, his whole body is just falling apart and is being held together by his hockey alone, basically. Character A solar system level. What is solar system level? Like, I know what a solar system is, but what solar system? Our solar system is not the only solar system. And FTL and character B has best character A in combat. However, character B's upper limits is in the past have been established to be wall level and subsonic. Then it is not safe to assess that character B is solar system level in FTL, with such occasions being declared an outlier plot-induced stupidity for character B. Okay, so basically they're saying that anything that goes against what they made up as their own rules, again, none of this is writing stuff. This is all fandom stuff from the Versus Battle Wiki, which is a subsect of Fandom Wiki. And anything that doesn't fit into their rules that they made up is plot-induced stupidity or an outlier. You know, no like untapped potential. Or did you know that there are actual real world examples of stuff like that happening? Like, I remember that there's this one documentary I watched, God, probably 15 years ago now. It was on Discovery Channel. About, like, superhuman feats. How, like, in times of extreme stress or turmoil, people are capable of some crazy shit. Like, there's this one dude in probably Kansas or something that his house was hit by a tornado, and it was blowing the door off its hinges. This dude grabbed the door and actually managed to pull it shut. This was like an F5 tornado, and so the strength required to shut that door would have been pretty close to the same as like lifting a car, or it was something crazy like that. Like, just the human brain is something that we don't fully comprehend even with all of our modern sciences, and the brain controls basically everything, and humans are capable of some really crazy stuff when it comes, down to the wire, or when it's life or death and fight or flight. Character A has human level stats physically. Are we talking me, or are we talking, like Chuck Norris? Like, what human? But using telekinesis, they can destroy a building. Again, they're still generating that amount of force. Just because it's not these muscles doesn't mean it's not this muscle. Muscles are different. Just because you can punch a hole through a wall doesn't mean you can kick a hole through a wall. Maybe your arms are just beefier than your legs. Maybe you're like Bartholomew Kuma, very little twig legs, but big burly cartoon Johnny Bravo body. Johnny Bravo is another example of that. That's just cartoon logic, though. Power scaling via inverse ratings. In the case of power scaling via inverse statistics, it's generally preferable to scale characters based on their own feats. However, the inverse tiering system is consistent enough. It's not because writers don't give a shit. Statistics power scaling can be applied. Yeah, no, not really. For example, a character rated as 4.5 has better showings than a character rated 3. What rating system? Like, that's... Don't you love it when fandoms make up their own rules, completely disregarding what the writers are actually intending, and then try to lord those same rules over everyone else? That's what I'm speaking out against. That's the whole reason why I'm doing this video. The Versus community can suck a dick. Because every single time something happens that they didn't predict, they get all pissy. Like, I'm seeing it right now with the Wano arc in One Piece. I'm seeing a lot of people being like, Luffy needs to lose. Luffy didn't earn this victory. When he actually did. Like, he's put in the work. He's put in more work for this fight than any other fight in the past. But no, because Kaido is regarded as the world's strongest creature and the strongest living pirate, that means he has to be able to beat Luffy. Even though, Kaido also fought the Scabbards, and then Law, and Kid, and Zoro. Ignore all that. And that basically wraps this up. Now that lengthy diatribe is out of the way, let's talk about One Piece. Yo! Don't give it up, Luffy! One Piece has a couple things going on under the hood that makes each fight dynamic. Which is all stuff Oda implemented in order to make the fights more interesting, because choreography and the actual mechanics of fighting is something that he's not great at. Most One Piece fights just feature two people plowing into each other with their respective abilities until someone drops. Sometimes Luffy needs to learn a trick in order to have his punches matter, but that's only happened like 3 times in the series. One such example is Luffy vs. Crocodile. Crocodile's a Logia fruit user, and Luffy's punches were worthless. Crocodile bested Luffy and left him for dead, and in round 2, Luffy used water and was actually able to level the playing field, but it wasn't enough, so he lost again. And then in round 3, Luffy uses blood in place of water and kicked Crocodile's ass. This all happened in the span of a few hours at most. We almost never see Luffy training. We've had a few flashbacks to his training as a child or with Rayleigh during the time skip, and then there's a few flashes in Wano where he's learning advanced armament hockey. But for the most part, Luffy is exactly as strong as he needs to be to make the story compelling, and that's the crux of this whole video. Why would I give a fuck about Luffy versus Kaido if winning or losing weren't both possibilities? Wondering who is going to win or who is going to survive is way more interesting than marking time for the inevitable to happen. It creates intrigue, makes people want to read the next issue and the next 1,000 issues after that. And in One Piece, its complex political structure makes the outcome way more important than the fight itself. What happens if Luffy wins? What happens if Kaido wins? What happens if Luffy wins but Kaido survives? What happens if Luffy wins but some of his crewmates lose? What happens if Kaido beats Luffy but all of his crewmates lose, leading to Kaido having to fight the entire alliance by himself? These are all very valid possibilities for where the Wano arc is going, and nowhere is any outcome guaranteed. So here's a couple problems with power scaling I haven't already said. There's always a problem with word-of-mouth stuff. One Piece and tons of other series often rely on certain characters overestimating themselves and underestimating their opponent. This stuff really matters. So until something is actually established, it's not established! Going back to the Ruby vs. Aesop's fight, we're told that the Aesops are the best huntsman team in Atlas, where their only competition is Team Funky. Other than that, we see Ruby and Harriet running circles, and because math is a thing, we knew that Ruby was actually moving marginally faster than Harriet. Other than that, none of the other Aesops have any significant feats that show that they are in any way stronger than Team Ruby. All they have is their reputation, and that reputation is what creates those open expectations I talked about earlier. Who will win? Will Ruby have to escape? Could they escape? All of these were open questions at the beginning of the fight, and keeping those questions open is what makes fights compelling. Then there's all the more well-documented problems with power scaling, like the aforementioned origins within fandoms to debate who is more likely to beat whose ass, or the self-serving nature of such debates, or the complete inability for us to take every single factor into account because we're not omniscient and we have no idea whether anyone in a fight is at 100%, or the simple truth that nobody is at 100% of the time, or real-world inconsistencies in reaction speeds as highlighted by how the greatest baseball hitters of all time only get a solid hit once every 3 plate appearances. Hell, if I wanted to talk about real-world martial arts or sports, I could be here all day recounting all sorts of underdog stories. At the end of the day, there is a wide gap between a writer creating expectations and an audience member creating expectations for themselves. The former is limitless in its possibilities, while the latter breeds nothing but disappointment. The fact that I have very little idea about how the Straw Hats are going to fare against the Beast Pirates is why that is one of the only 2 manga I'm reading week to week. The other one being Ranger Reject, which is just great. It's basically Power Rangers meets The Boys, but with none of either series' weaknesses. But wrapping up, if you take anything from this video, it's that you shouldn't let bullshit fandom debates interfere with your ability to enjoy a story, because 99% of writers give absolutely no fucks about what the Versus community thinks and will just tell the stories they want to tell the way they want to tell them, and therefore should be judged on those merits. I'm Mediocrity4, thanks for watching.